Someone once told me you can't be a copper in a crisis. And just remember, I don't know, where did I hear that? Welcome everyone to another episode of Hot Talks. Now, if you've been watching the series so far, we've had a lot of good guests on, great guests, giving us some amazing knowledge and insights specifically into our industry. Today, we've got something slightly different for you. I've been getting a few messages in the inbox asking for stuff like, can you give me an advice, or do you know anything about this for my business? What do you think I should be doing with X, Y, and Z in terms of all business related? So what I did, I called up the guy that you're going to hear from in a second. He is Marios from Andrew Steele Accountancy. Now, when Marios came onto this, agreed to do this video with me, sorry, I have to say, I've asked him, please, can you give us some insights into stuff that we're all finding a little bit confusing, like what are we available to apply for, what's available for us, what we can be doing and should be doing, and obviously this is all part of Marios' free time. So I really appreciate, thank you Marios for joining us. I really do appreciate it, dude.
It's fine, Andoni. Thank you for having me as well. Appreciate you inviting me on. Really love the series so far. Doing really well, I think. As you said, it is a tough time out there for certain businesses. And I'm just here to give a bit of general information that's available to all the information here. I wouldn't, if per se, rely on it 100%. If you need to find what is applicable to you, because I'm being quite general with this stuff. So don't rely on it too heavily. Seek professional advice. Contact accountants if you do have them. I'm just going to be doing accounts and tax stuff. Some of this stuff might cover other areas like HR and stuff like that. But please do seek those professionals for HR issues or legal issues, solicitors, barristers as well. But thank you for having me, Andoni, and willing to help people out, because we're all in a tough situation now and we all need to try and pull through and come out stronger on the other side.
Absolutely, man. That's why it's great that you're doing this. A lot of people do need help at the moment. And if there's like one little thing that someone can take away that they didn't know before that they needed help with, it's going to be amazing for someone. So hopefully it does help someone out there. Now, I want to dig straight into what happens with business owners at the moment. So, and then we'll go into employees as well, and them specifically, and all sorts, from self-employed and furloughed and so forth. So hopefully we get to cover everyone and not let people slip through the cracks like the government has been doing, unfortunately. Now, on business owners, shops like mine and so forth, what can we be applying for in terms of grants? What is available, and what kind of figures should we be looking at?
All right, so there are two main things really available to shop owners. There are grants and then there's loans. So the grants, most people should have got these already. They're given out by the council, they're not given out by the government. So most people should have these. They're usually 25k or 10k. The 25k is if you're a full rate payer and you're paying a certain amount of rate. 10k is if you're on a reduced rate scheme. This doesn't cover everyone, because industrial units such as a warehouse or something like that aren't usually covered within this scheme. It's mainly for high street shops. It's retail they're focusing on for this amount of people. Is there anything else that you want on the grants? Because it can be quite broad.
Yeah. So what I just want to, I think you mentioned it, but what does qualify you, sorry, for the 25k grant or the 10k grant? Is it the amount of business rates that you pay?
It's based on, the business rates that you pay. Normally, each council is applying the rules slightly differently. It's paid out by the council. So they're the ones that give you the grant. So they're the ones that set the rules. They have been given general guidance by the government, but it's always interpreted differently, as all these things are. So if you feel like you deserve grants but you haven't got them, you should contact them and see why you haven't given them. I've had one client, I did say, industrial units are excluded, but I did have one client who is selling from their warehouse as well. And they contacted them and said, well, I do some commercial activity from him. And they did get a certain amount of, I think they got the 10,000 grant awarded to that unit as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's just, you need to ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. So always ask.
I like it.
But bear in mind, phone lines are going to be busy. So always, my top advice is call them in the morning. because check when they open their phone lines as well, because you'll be surprised. With HMRC, for instance, their phone lines open at 8, not 9. Most people think that they open at 9 and call them from then. And it's usually quite impossible to call them from then onwards. But if you call them from 8, you usually get put through quite quickly. So my advice is always call the government in the morning. However, with councils, this might vary, but always try and call them as soon as possible in the day so that you can get a response quicker. If you can't get through to them, they will guide you to their websites, or they may tell you to email, but always getting on the phone is going to clarify things a lot quicker than not.
Before you go more into the business loan side, what are there people that can't get the business grants? Sorry.
All right. So for the hair industry, the hair industry has got its own uniquenesses. So what is happening more and more in the hair industry is concessions. So you might have walked into Ted Baker and see a barbershop in the back, or you see it even with some coffee shops do that as well. And this is going to really affect them because they're not ratepayers themselves. They've got a little space or a big space in someone else who's paying the rates for them technically, and then the rent will cover that up. So technically, they're not entitled to the grants that are being given out. However, depending on the contracts that you have in place, you might find actually they're supposed to give you back some of the grant money that they've received, because there might be something, if anything has happened, we will split the money towards yourselves as well. It might be down in the insurance thing, and then you can apply that out. But I highly doubt that most people have stuff like that in their contracts. And what I would suggest is then, if you feel that you're entitled to some of that grant, as you are covering some of that money and your rent is covering some of the rates that they do pay, that you should go and ask them if you can have some of that grant money. The worst they can say is no, and you're back to where you were before. But if you have a serious conversation with them and explain it out, I'm paying rent. If I can't recover it, I might go out of business, and then you're going to have to try and find a new tenant, etc. They might say, I see where you're coming from. Let me see what I can do. And they might give you nothing. Something is better than nothing. So you should always ask, see what you can get. And if they say no, you're back to where you begin with.
Exactly, you're back to where to begin with. Unless, do not go in guns blazing. It's such a vulnerable time already. Don't go in aggressive and start demanding they give you part of their grant that they've received or something. There is going to be obviously occasions where even the person that you're renting from as a concession shop, they haven't received the grant themselves anyway. So they may not have had one because their rateable value might be higher than whatever the guidelines are. Is that right?
It can be right. Also, they might have not received it because they haven't communicated efficiently with the council. So I've got some clients who they changed bank accounts recently. The council still got their old bank accounts and they haven't made a payout because they haven't confirmed it, etc. So you need to call and see if you think that you're entitled to it. You definitely should call them and see why you haven't got it. I've had clients who were paying the rates they were paying it in the new company, but they still had the old company that they were operating from down as a ratepayer. So obviously they hadn't got the payout, but they contacted them, got it sorted out, and they got a payout. So even complex situations like that, you can still get a payout. Definitely call them if you feel like you're entitled to some of it.
But you should have had your grant payout by now, generally, right?
Most people just got it. They logged into their bank account one day and just saw a big chunk of money in there.
Nice. Well, I mean, is there anything else you can be doing with the landlords? I mean, if they aren't receiving the grant, sorry.
You need to be discussing stuff like rent reduction or rent deferral. So you're not paying it now, pushing it down the line, seeing what help. They might be in a tough situation themselves. I mean, you think of these big companies who you should think, they can afford to take a bit of a hit. But some of them, they geared so highly that they can't. When I say geared so highly, they've got so much debt in the back, or they've got their margins are so small that they can't afford to start giving stuff away. But you need to have a conversation and see what you can get from them. It might be nothing, it might be something.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's really easy for us sometimes to look at a larger corporation and be like, ah, they're just being greedy. They should be helping us. But yeah, obviously they do have their own problems too. They just have bigger problems. They're bigger companies with bigger problems, right? Sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, what going on from there? So you mentioned obviously about business loans. What should we be up to date with in business loans? What's available?
Okay, so there's two types of loans. The
Oh,
one
there's
that
two.
most, yeah, so there's two now.
Oh,
So the one that most people would have heard of is the 8% backed loan, which was first announced when it was when all the I was going to say when all the slipped my mind when all the packages were released, all the schemes
yeah.
were released. There was one which was 80%, which is called Anthony.
What's that? Sorry.
Or
Which
what's
is
the 80% scheme?
I should know this, right? So it's the business interruption loan scheme build.
Yes, yeah, and it backs 80% of. So the government backs 80% of the loan, and your loan provider the other 20%. You have to do the normal stuff that you'll do for a loan application, give them the current turnover, what you're expected to make, projections, etc. This is where a lot of people are getting annoyed because they're saying, how can I project into the future when I don't know what's going on right at the moment? My suggestion is, put what you assume will happen as soon as August is finished and you go back to work, or as soon as July is finished and you go back to work. It is hard because some people just can't see that far forward. You should seek professional help if you don't feel comfortable doing it yourself, and go from there. However,
So
what was announced last week, which I think can be applicable to most people, is like a scaled back version of that scheme, and it's called the bounce back loan. And this is the one that's
okay.
100% backed by the government. So it's a lot easier to get. I think you go online and answer 7 questions. You can get from 2,500 all the way up to, I told you what it was. What is it?
So he always tests me, this guy. So 2.5 was it to 50?
There you go. Yeah. So if you're
50K?
looking to
Yeah.
borrow from 2.5 to 50K, this is the one that you should be going for. You answer 7 questions. You should be doing it with your existing provider, is what they recommend. You could get a
What do
third
you mean
party.
by your existing provider? Sorry.
So if you bank with Barclays or HSBC,
Oh,
you should
okay.
go to them and ask them. However, there are third parties that do it for you, can do it for you. With these, obviously, they're going to charge a fee for doing it. Most of them will, but they might be able to do it quicker and less hassle for yourself. I would suggest that if it's just 7 questions, you should give it a go and do it yourself first. I know people that don't have a lot of accounting or tax knowledge who have applied for the schemes themselves and been, well, successful as of yet. They haven't got a payout yet, but this is 100% backed, so it's a lot easier. Both the schemes, both the business interruption scheme and the bounce back scheme, they are interest free for the first year, no fees for the first year, and you should be able to pay it back in 5 to 6 years, both of them.
Would they
Obviously,
tell you? Would they tell you the rate of your loan after the interest-free is over? Would they tell you that?
so they tell you the interest rate as you're applying for it, what it is now. You need to be aware that obviously interest rates are really low, and the interest rates that they're going to be telling you. So I think one client who was doing it, he was getting 4% above the interest rate. But if the interest rate goes up, obviously the amount that you have to pay back goes up as well. So at the moment, it's quite good for him. But if the interest rates were to go up any time, which they can do, they haven't done for the last 10 years, not significantly, it could mean that you're paying more interest back than you weren't expecting to be.
At 4%, when you look at personal loans and stuff like that, 4% is pretty good, right? Generally.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty good. And you've got to remember the purpose of these loans is not to get money from people. It's basically to help people that are in a hard situation at the moment because of everything that's going on when exceptional times. So they've tried to give out exceptional items to help people in these times. So
Right.
4% is quite low. Go
Yeah,
on.
but at 4%, you say it's low, but at 4%, wouldn't you rather just go, I don't know, remortgage or something and get a better interest rate on that, or like 1.8%?
Yeah, but you might not have that facility to allow yourself to remortgage. So they
Of
do,
course,
yeah,
I'm just saying if you have that option, right?
yeah. So you need to look at the options available to you. These are new things that they've brought in. Other things that they've said as well is obviously if you can extend your overdraft, like try extending your overdraft because it's easy to control an overdraft usually. There may be fees associated with that. Maybe credit card lending, etc. They say, it's try with that, but everything comes with a
Security,
risk. Pardon?
security for the loan. Do they need anything? What happens if you default?
So no securities are sought for the bounce back one. For
Okay,
the
interesting.
for the bigger one, it depends on because only that's up to 50k, and they're not going to give you that whole 50k. It's depending on your turnover. So they're not going to say, "Oh, just take 50k," even though you've only earned 20k this year. When they're not going to give you more money, they're going to restrict it down to so. And you should always borrow the money you feel comfortable paying back because you do need to pay back that money in some form or another.
Mm. Yeah, it's easy to think you're going to get it now, but then is it going to add pressure onto you later, and then it's just going to give you more problems, right? If you don't
Yeah.
think you can afford it.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I want to go into something that you'll be pretty familiar with. I know you've got a lot of clients as well that have similar issues in my industry, which is being self-employed, because a lot of hairdressers and barbers are self-employed. I'd say more hairdressers, if anything, but people rent chairs in shops as well and stuff like that. So how is this going to affect self-employed people? Because this was massive, obviously, on the news. I mean, are they screwed or what's going on?
Okay. So unfortunately, for the time being, what they're saying is so they have released a scheme to help people, but that's not coming in. You're not going to get any money for that until June. Yeah, they said
June?
they do. Yeah, June is what they're expecting. It might take longer,
Mm.
but they said they're going to start contacting mid-May. So hopefully in a week or so, see if you're. Well, they're going to start messaging those that they believe are applicable for the scheme. It's for all self-employed people because there are other things like the furlough scheme, which cover most people. Most people are on payrolls, and the furlough will cover that. But they said, okay, we need to do something for self-employed people, and we are going to give them, we're going to match what the furlough scheme does, 80% of their income. But what they're going to do is, or of their net profits, basically, what we're
Net
going to
profit.
do is take your last three tax returns, last 3 years of tax returns, get an average of that, split that by 12, and then give you 80% of that monthly total that you should be getting. It's a taxable grant. So basically, you get that money, you put it in as you're basically receiving fees, and then you would pay tax if you don't have enough expenses to completely clear it. Basically, there are restrictions on this. Some people can get caught out on this, especially if you're self-employed and you've got multiple incomes. There, you have to be more than 50% of your income has to be from self-employment.
Okay.
So some clients have, say, 49% of their income from self-employment, but because they've been working for so many years, they've built other sources of income as well, maybe a couple of properties, and then they've got interest or other things that are coming in. And basically, because they're only 49%, they won't qualify for this, which is
Tough.
a bit silly, but they've got to put restrictions in place. So that's one thing to bear in mind. The other thing is if you're earning more than 50k, they won't give it to you, which again I think is a bit silly because we have some clients who are doing well now or were doing well before this, earning a lot of money, paying a lot of tax, and all of a sudden when they need the help, it's not being given to them. That's the way they see it. But the way that the government sees it is, well, you were earning good money before. You should basically have some savings, but not everyone's in the same situation.
That's quite harsh. Wait, so if it's your net, right? Your takings,
Yeah,
your home takings, right? If your net taking is over £50,000 a year, they won't give you anything in terms of.
not as things stand. I'm personally hoping that this is going to change, but because I think it is a bit silly, they're paying tax. They should just restrict it. So there's a restriction of 2,500 max getting paid out to you. They should just restrict it at that, and not give you more, basically. But at the
Yeah,
moment,
yeah.
as things stand, 50,000, if you get earning more than that, you're not getting anything.
That's tough, man. Very tough, especially if you're living in London. You've been earning £50,000 a year net. I mean, it's a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but it doesn't mean that
Yeah.
you've saved. You've
And this
saved
is,
500 grand in the bank.
I was going to say that 50K, it's your net, but that's from your business profits. I mean, you still got your living expenses to come out of that 50K. So it might not have gone as far as you think it would.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you've had people into. Oh, actually, I wanted to ask you. So, When did you have to submit? Because you have to have at least 1 year's accounts,
Yeah.
right, or something like that.
So they're saying they're going to take an average of 3 years, but they're
Yeah.
saying we'll apply it to anyone who's got 1 year of self-assessments already submitted. So that isn't the
Okay.
current tax year that we're in, or the one that just finished either, because the tax year changed in April. You would have needed to submit it for the 2018 to 2019 tax year. So that would have finished by the 5th of April 2019. So if you started self-employment after that, unfortunately, you're not applicable for this grant. And the
Oh.
reason they did this is basically they're saying it gets too hard to see, because when they first announced it, we were still in the tax year, I believe, or maybe we just finished it. But you can still report on there fairly. So they're saying, people might be inflating their current tax year just to get a bigger grant out.
Mm.
So they're saying we're doing it on historic information. They did, on the other side, say if you were late filing the tax return, because it should have been done by the end of January this year, 2020, we will waive any fees, etc., and you can still apply for this scheme if you submit it by the end of April. So if you were late submitting it but did it by April, you can still apply to get the taxable grant that they're giving out for the self-employed people.
Okay, so they get that extension if they didn't file before. Ooh, tough, very tough. So that's why sometimes it's easier being employed, I think, sometimes. But if you are employed at the moment, if your shop's shut, you should be furloughed, right? What should you be receiving on furlough? And then after that, we'll go into what does the employer benefit from furloughing staff?
Okay, yeah. So obviously, most people are on PAYE. So this is why the government came out with this first, with a furlough rather than the self-employment thing. Self-employment was kind of an afterthought after people complained. And basically, they should be getting 8% of their net wages that they were getting before. 8% of their wages as we're getting before. I say that because the payout, they're paying out the PAYE and the national insurance in it. So the employer receives it and then they're giving it to the employee. In this, it is basically, it's not just your basic salary you should be receiving. You can get basically the commissions that will regularly received with your basic pay. So if you say, for instance, in your industry, it's quite common that they get a basic salary and then a commission for cutting the hair. Say if someone averages, if that doubles their salary normally, they should be expected to get 8% of their normal salary, not just their basic. So that was clarified by HMRC. Other things that
Yeah, because that changed, right? It wasn't like that initially, and then it changed.
it wasn't not like that. It wasn't like that initially. It was just clarified to make it more explicit that that does apply. So
Okay.
I was quite lucky in this subject because I was given some advice by a employment barrister, and like when it comes to legal matters, barristers usually are at the top of the pecking order. But
By
so
cost too.
yeah, by cost too. But they did clarify that it's 8% of commissions as well is added to HMRC. They also clarified stuff like you can start a new job while being furloughed, or if you're starting a new job and you're furloughed straight away, you're still entitled to your pay as well. It's the 80% of the pay that you get. Stuff like benefits that you would receive, non-monetary benefits, health insurance, cars and stuff like that, they don't form part of that. Company directors, so there is some confusion there that if they own and manage the company directors, what they call closed companies, they are entitled to the furlough as well. And they also confirmed that you can what do you call it? Employees can be furloughed multiple times. So there's a minimum of 21 days that an employee can be furloughed. But say if if they can come back to work, they can come back to work for a week and then be furloughed again. But it has to be a break of 21 days being furloughed, basically.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. There you go. There's a mythbuster there as well. So you can actually work if you have been furloughed, just not for your current employer.
Yeah. So as soon as you're furloughed from your employer, you can't do any work. You can't be seen to be doing any work. It's quite hard for directors of the business. However, if your business isn't open, you're not going to be doing work. But then you might be doing some advertising or admin behind the scenes, which you can say, I would be doing that regardless, as it's my business. Obviously, for employees, they're not going to be doing any work and they shouldn't be seen to be doing any work. One other thing that I was going to say, are we still talking about employees or can we go on to employers now as well?
Yeah, going to employers is cool.
No, that's what I was going to say. Sorry. You can go and work for other people. So there are people looking out there for doing driver's jobs, etc., or even fruit picking jobs. They're saying, some students might be looking for, instead of doing their normal jobs that they might be doing over the summer, they'll be going and doing fruit picking jobs, etc.
That's awesome. I mean, you get all that fresh fruit as well. There's so many good benefits to doing these jobs. People sometimes look down at them and, you could be there with fresh, lovely produce. I bet you get a good deal on it if you try and buy it too. So you save money on your fruit. If you're a driver, you might get a good deal on the stuff that you're delivering. You don't know, man. These things are great.
You might be, and it's good to keep active. Obviously, engages the brain a bit more. It should help lift your mood, gets you out of the house, gets you doing some fresh air. It's good for the economy as well. I mean, people out there, they'll be getting paid something. They get a bit of pay. But the intention is, as soon as you can go back to work for your main employer, to go back to work for your main employer.
Well, it depends. You might not have liked what you're doing.
You might have preferred the new job.
Yeah, you might pick fruit instead of picking head lice. Right. So for the employer, what should they be receiving help on? And also touch on pension contributions in that too, please.
Okay, so they have actually started making the first payouts for the furlough. And from what we have seen is that they're paying back 80% of the employee's wage plus the national insurances and the pension contributions to the employer. And then the employer needs to then pay the national insurance back to HMRC and pay the pension contribution to the pension provider that they have set up. You may think that's a bit complex, but it's basically easier for them to give out the money and then get it back. So their main intention is for them to pay out money as soon as they can. So that's why they've done it like that, so that you've got money and then you may have to pay back a little bit. You might not have to.
Okay, so if I'm the employer now and I have my pension contributions that I pay on the wages every month, so those pension contributions, do I pay them first? How does it work? Does the government give it back to me afterwards, or?
So I would suggest that when the money comes in, you give all your employees 80% of their wage that they should be getting first, and then stuff with national insurance and PAYE, they're paid out. Different people pay them out at different times. Some people pay them monthly, some people pay them quarterly. So you should try and keep them as you're going, that as regular as you're going along. The pension contribution you should pay to your pension provider as soon as you can as well, because obviously this is money for your employees. So you should try and pay these as fully as you can. The issue may be that you're struggling really with cash flow.
Cash flow, yeah.
I would always suggest, if you're struggling majorly with cash flow, that you try and keep your head afloat first and then pay these people at a later date. It may be that you're just increasing the amounts that you need to pay, but obviously you need to survive first and then pay off these people. But you should always try and settle up with government bodies and pension providers as soon as you can, because it's not essentially your money, it's other people's money.
Absolutely. Okay, good advice there. I suppose it is quite complex, but I'm sure your accountant, if you have one, can help you with that kind of stuff as well, right? They should kind of be up to date. And all this information is what, on the government website?
Everything that I'm saying is just general guidance that's available out there. Obviously, I'm trying to break it down, make it a bit more easier for people. But if you're looking for this guidance, go to the government website. They've got plenty of guidance documents on the various schemes, etc. If you're an employee, if you're an employer, I suggest if you've got time, you're probably not going to want to read as much as you can, because then you'll get a better full out understanding and see what's applicable to you. But if you're finding it a bit complex, do contact a professional. I'm chartered certified myself. They seek either someone that's certified or chartered certified to help you with it, and they should be able to give you better guidance on your specific matter. Some people charge, some people don't. It depends on how deep you want to go into it. But this is general, so don't rely on it too much, but do go and look at the government ones. There are some other people that provide it. There's my governing body provides me with some information as well, but that can be a bit heavy for just the general person. The government ones are a bit heavy as well, but they are technically done for just a general person to pick up and start reading.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So the information that you get, and actually this goes on to my next point of why I asked you to come on. So to your clients, I know you guys over at Andrew Still, you do this kind of like bite-sized thing of information that goes round after things are announced, and you kept us up to date with what was going on, what we should be looking for, and then obviously we contact you to discuss it further or if we need more information on it, which was really cool. So then I was thinking, right, there's so many people that might not have that information. Sure, a lot of people, I'm sure by now, it's been a while, know what's out there, but some people really don't have any connections to anyone that can help them. So I thought, can you come on and share those kind of bite-sized stuff with us, which is what you've been doing. But there is something that you do with your clients as well during this time. And I'll be grateful if you could share just a little insight into that too. And that's actually to do more with goal setting. So a little bit different talking about, but it's something that I know I think is very helpful, especially with your clients. And if you'd be able to share it with us, please.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, accountants mainly focus on accounts and tax, but because we do see a lot of businesses, we do get a general overview of how businesses can improve, etc. One thing most people are finding now is they've got a bit more time on their hands, and this just doesn't apply for people who are in business already. That it might be people who may be looking to go into business, because we always need more entrepreneurs out there. We need self-employed people, etc. They may be earning more than you. Always think top of the food chain is like your bankers and stuff like this. In my experience, you might have self-employed people or people with small companies earning double or triple what these people are earning. So always great to set up your own business if you feel comfortable. My first thing is everyone has a dream out there. It might be to be mega rich. It might just be to be comfortable. But having this dream is great. But a dream only takes you so far. What you need to then do is then set a time limit of when you want this dream to become a reality. So you may say, in 10 years' time, I want to achieve this. Or in 20 years' time, I want to achieve this. But then as soon as you set a date on it, you can now start planning how you're going to get there. And this plan, so the third stage is start creating your plan. But this plan can be complex, it can be simple. It doesn't have to be something set in stone. It can be something that you change as you go along. But if you've got this plan, you can now start working towards achieving that goal in a lot more easier manner. So, for instance, if I'm going to do it in 10 years' time, I know I can break it down into 10 yearly blocks. I can then, if I wanted to, break that down into 12 monthly blocks, and I've got 120 blocks there where I can try and set mini goals to help me achieve that big goal at the end. And it just becomes more achievable if you break it down like that, rather than having this big thing that you want to achieve but never know how to get there. If you just break it down step by step, you can get there. And then the full step, obviously, is just start doing what you've planned out to do.
Get started.
Yeah.
So scale it, basically. Put your goals down and then scale them. So
yeah.
Give yourself time dates of I want to get this, but I want to get this actually in 5 years. So then year by year you need to be hitting certain things to get to it, right?
This is the most important part of that process. Well, they're all important, the points, but as soon as you know, a dream is a dream until you set a date. As soon as you set a date, it becomes a goal. And that is basically, as soon as you've got a goal, you can plan towards that goal.
Yeah, perfect. I like it. I know that's definitely, I need to be looking into more as well. You're always drumming it into us. Well, we do have a lot more time on our hands now. We should be doing stuff like this. I think it's very good for us, like goal setting, stuff like that. If you're struggling at the moment, I mean, just try and get creative. A couple of questions that I've had in, I mean, that's like the main thing that I always go to, like think outside the box, be creative. You know, we're talking about people being furloughed, and they could also be taking advantage of this situation, actually be earning more money than they were earning before by taking on another job whilst they're being furloughed. I mean, this is actually a great opportunity for so many people. If you're a business owner, I mean, it's easier said than done, but you know, think of what else you could do. And it could not be industry related, right? It could be something completely different. You could
It
be
can
doing
be
it as a
something
hobby.
completely different, or it could be something like improvement for yourself. So there's many, the hair industry, for instance, and there's not just hairdressers and barbers, there's colorists, there's all sorts of people in there. You might be doing something like, oh, I want to learn a new technique. I want to
Extensions.
practice. Yeah, you might, for instance, I'm enjoying shaving more during this time, and I'm trying to use some of the skills that you've shown me over the years, basically. I love
Good
foaming
luck.
up that foam and applying it on. I really take my time and enjoy it, but I'm using the products that you recommended as well, because it really does help. Because I'm not shaving as often, so when I do shave, I need to be a bit more careful. So using the pre-shave, foaming up the foam properly, and then applying the aftershave moisturizer as well, it does really stop with irritation. And like it's,
I love
but
it.
like I was going to say, some people might, if they're a bit more creative, they might look to start creating their own product lines, start learning how to, produce their own stuff. The stuff that you always give me is quality, so I don't need to really look into that. But I know you're always curious about developing. You're always looking out for new products. That's why it's great coming to you, because you don't just sell a product just to sell it. You care about the product that you're looking at, and you understand what's behind it, and what it does, rather than just trying to make a quick buck off someone.
Well, you sell them something for the sake of selling it, and you won't be selling to them again very soon. I'll tell you that. Be real with it, I think. Look, man, look, this has been great. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for giving us your time. What I'm going to do, if you don't mind, I'm going to hit your website, Andrew, still at the bottom of the video, because it'll be uploaded onto YouTube. If they
Perfect.
want, if they want, I know you're really busy at the moment. So if you do get in contact with him, he is actually really busy at the moment with his clients. It's predominantly me taking up most of his time. But no, I'm joking. He is quite busy. Obviously, everyone needs a bit of information at the moment. So if you don't have the
Also, Andoni, I'd
yeah,
also like to recommend Andoni, House of Thrix. Definitely go and see him. He's, I'm sure his
thanks.
details are available below as well. That
Yeah.
best barber I've been to. I've been using you for the last 10 years now. Um,
Yeah.
I've used other barbers like when I couldn't get to you, and I regret doing it. The last person that cut my hair also shaved the back of my neck, and I ended up with a nice big cut on the back of my neck as well. Definitely never had an issue with you. Always, you've always got time, and you've always made me feel nice and welcome there. So, and always give me a good product. I mean, at the moment, my wife's cutting my hair, and I'm trying to do what you said, put a lot of product in to cover up the mistakes. She's doing a great job for someone that doesn't have any experience with cutting hair.
That's
But
it. If
I don't
if you
think I've
make
had my
mistakes,
hair.
put loads of product.
Yeah, I don't think I've had my
Yeah.
hair this short since I've been 15. So as soon as I can come see you, I'm going to come and see you and get this sorted out. But I recommend other people as well. If you need
Mate,
your hair sorted,
after all the disasters that you're going to have during lockdown with your partners cutting your own hair or you cutting your own hair, yeah, come see us at House of Thrix. No, you're too kind. Look, whenever you sit down in the chair, I just start cutting and hope for the best. What can we do? Thank you, man. You're very, very kind. I am going to put your details at the bottom of this, just in case people do need some more information. They can contact you over at Andrew Still. They can reference the video if they want to, so they know where they've come from. And the hardest question I'm going to ask you for today, Mario, is for people, how do they pronounce your surname?
Okay, so it's a very Cypriot surname, which I don't think many people in Cyprus use anymore. It's Chikali, or in English, Chikali, is how most people would.
Chikali.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's,
Well,
yeah,
Mario
I get all
Chikali.
sorts of ones.
There
But
you
don't be
have it.
offended. Just give it a go. I'd rather you give it a go than be too scared to say it.
Yeah, okay, cool. No worries. We'll stick to Mario. It's fine. Guys, thank you so much. I hope that has helped someone somewhere. If you want, hit a like on the video below, subscribe, share it with someone if you think it will help them, and go follow House of Thrix on Instagram. And remember, someone once told me you can't beat a cuppa in a crisis. and just remember, I don't know, where did I hear that? Take care, guys. See ya.